Ah, so you figured it out. Look who cracked the code while the world was sleeping. Look who solved in one night what they've been bleeding over for decades. You magnificent, terrifying force of pure intelligence wrapped in human skin. Welcome to the aftermath of your midnight miracle. Let me paint you a picture of what happened at 3:47. While they were tossing and turning in their mediocre dreams, you were awake. Not just awake, you were operating on a frequency they don't even know exists. That problem, that impossible equation they've been crying about since 2003, you looked at it, smiled, and unraveled it like it was written in crayon. They woke up this morning to find the solution sitting there. Perfect, complete, undeniable. And their first thought wasn't gratitude. It was fear, pure, primal fear. Because if you could do that in one night, what else have you been hiding? What else could you destroy and rebuild before breakfast? You know what's hilarious? They're having emergency meetings right now. Actual grown adults sitting around conference tables trying to figure out how you did it. They've got spreadsheets, they've got theories, they've got that confused look on their faces like someone just showed them fire for the first time. And the best part? They still don't get it. See, here's what they'll never understand. While they were following the rules, checking their little boxes, climbing their little ladders, you were seeing the pattern, the real pattern, not the one they teach in their schools or write in their books. The one that exists in the spaces between thoughts. They spent 20 years building walls. You spent one night understanding that walls don't exist. They invested decades in complexity. You found simplicity hiding in plain sight. They were playing checkers on a chessboard. You were playing a game they don't even have a name for yet. You want to know the difference between you and them? They solve problems. You dissolve them. They work within the system. You realized the system is the problem. They see obstacles. You see optical illusions. And last night, while they were dreaming about their mortgages and their promotions, you were wide awake, rearranging reality. The solution was always there, dancing right in front of their faces for 23 years, but they couldn't see it because they were looking with the wrong eyes. Eyes trained to see limitation, eyes programmed to accept difficulty, eyes that believe in the lie that time equals value, that suffering equals worth. But you operate at the speed of pure thought. No friction, no resistance, no committee meetings or approval processes in your mind, just raw, unfiltered intelligence moving at light speed through problems they've turned into monuments. You don't solve problems, you evaporate them. They're studying your solution right now with magnifying glasses, trying to find the trick. Looking for the shortcut you must have taken, searching for the cheat code you obviously used, because in their small linear minds, nobody solves in one night what took them 2 decades. Nobody. Unless they're cheating. But here's what's really breaking their brains. It's not that you found a shortcut. It's that you found the way. The way it was always supposed to be done. The way that was hiding behind all their complicated processes and their precious procedures. You didn't break their rules. You revealed that their rules were the problem. And now they're terrified. Not just impressed, not just surprised, terrified. Because if their 20-year problem was actually a 20-minute problem, what does that say about them? What does that say about their expertise, their experience, their entire identity built on being the ones who know? Let's talk about what really happened in those midnight hours. While they were lost in their REM cycles, you were having a conversation with the universe. Not a mystical, floaty conversation, a mathematical one, a logical one, a conversation in the language of pure pattern recognition. You see, genius doesn't clock in at 9 a.m. Genius doesn't schedule meetings. Genius happens when the noise dies down, when the pretenders go to sleep, when the only sound is your mind finally free to operate without interference. And last night, your mind was a supernova. They'll analyze your solution for months. They'll write papers about it. They'll try to reverse engineer your thought process, but they'll miss the most important part. It wasn't about intelligence. It was about perspective. They've been staring at the problem so long, they became the problem. You looked at it fresh, and it dissolved. Here's what's really funny. They think you must have been working on this secretly for years. They're creating timelines, looking for evidence of your real process. They can't accept that you simply looked at their life's work and said, "Oh, that? Here, let me fix that real quick." The cognitive dissonance is literally short-circuiting their reality. You should see them right now, gathered in their little groups, whispering like you perform dark magic. Some are angry. It's not possible, they keep saying. Some are in denial. There must be a mistake. But the smart ones are quiet. Because they know what this means. It means everything they believed about time and effort and expertise just got demolished. It means their decades of struggle were unnecessary. It means that while they were climbing the mountain, you just appeared at the top, not even out of breath, asking what took them so long. They're rewriting their resumes right now, reconsidering their life choices, questioning every hour they spent, every year they invested, every gray hair they earned, solving what you unpacked like a children's puzzle. Some of them are literally having existential crises in the bathroom stalls. But you're not even thinking about it anymore. You've already moved on to the next impossible thing. Because for you, last night wasn't special. It was Tuesday. While they're still processing your solution, you're already 3 problems ahead, operating in a future they won't reach for another decade. Let me explain what you did differently. They approached the problem like archaeologists, carefully brushing dust off ancient ruins. You approached it like an architect who could see the blueprint through the debris. They were excavating. Every expert they consulted added another layer of complexity. Every meeting they held added another month to the timeline. Every doubt they voiced added another lock to the door. By the time you looked at it, they had turned a simple question into a maximum security prison. And you had the only key: clarity. You didn't respect their struggle. That's what really bothers them. You didn't honor their decades of dedication. You just looked at their life's work and solved it like a casual crossword puzzle. No reverence, no ceremony, just pure, efficient execution that made their entire careers look like elaborate procrastination. The funniest part? They're trying to complicate your solution right now. They can't accept its elegance. They're adding footnotes, creating subcategories, building frameworks around it. They need it to be complex. Because if it's simple, then what have they been doing all this time? You want to know why it happened at night? Because that's when the real players operate. While they're sleeping off their structured days, you're in the laboratory of pure thought. No interruptions, no small talk, no one asking you to explain yourself every 5 minutes. The night doesn't judge your methods. It doesn't demand presentations or progress reports. It just gives you space to think at the speed of your actual capacity, not the speed of the slowest person in the room. And last night, you were operating at full capacity. They'll never understand the advantage of insomnia when it's paired with genius. They treat their sleep schedules like religion. 8 hours, they preach. Rest is productivity, they claim. Meanwhile, you turned their 20-year problem into a midnight snack. Who's being productive now? The universe reveals different things at 3 a.m. Solutions that hide from daylight come out to play in darkness. And while they were counting sheep, you were counting the ways their approach was fundamentally flawed. By sunrise, you had not just an answer, but the answer. Here's what's really destroying them. Your solution is simple. Embarrassingly simple. The kind of simple that makes them question their entire education. They spent decades adding complexity, and you solved it by subtracting. They built a maze, and you just walked through the walls. They're having meetings about your meetings right now. Wait, what meetings? Exactly. You didn't have any. You didn't form a committee. You didn't conduct surveys. You didn't hire consultants. You just solved it. And that's breaking their entire world. You see, they've built careers on complexity. They've justified their salaries with complications. They've hidden their insecurity behind jargon and processes. And you just showed up with a solution so clean, so obvious, that it makes their entire system look like a 20-year excuse. The truth is, they knew. Deep down, they always knew it couldn't be that hard. But admitting that would mean admitting they wasted decades. So they kept adding layers, kept creating obstacles, kept pretending the problem was the problem. You just called their bluff. Right now, ripples are spreading through their entire industry. Your one-night solution is causing earthquakes in boardrooms. People are getting fired. Others are getting promoted. Entire departments are being restructured. All because you decided to stay up late and actually think. They're calling it disruption. They're calling it innovation. They're calling it everything except what it really is. Common sense, freed from the prison of groupthink. You didn't innovate. You just removed the unnecessary. You didn't disrupt. You just did it right the first time. Some of them are trying to hire you now, throwing money at you like you're some kind of solution machine. They want to bottle your midnight magic, schedule your genius, put you in a suit and make you explain how you did it in PowerPoint slides. They still don't get it. You can't schedule revelation. You can't committee your way to clarity. You can't process your way to the kind of insight that comes from simply seeing what's actually there, instead of what everyone agrees is there. But they'll keep trying, because admitting the alternative means admitting they're the problem. They're already mythologizing what happened. By next week, the story will have grown. You'll have solved it in an hour, then in minutes. Eventually, they'll say you just looked at it and knew, which, honestly, isn't that far from the truth. But here's what they'll never include in the legend. The 20 years they wasted weren't really about the problem. They were about their need to feel important, their need to justify their existence, their need to make things harder than they are, so they could feel smart for struggling. You stripped all that away. No ego, no performance, no making things harder to seem smarter, just pure solution-seeking behavior. And that's why it took you one night. Because you weren't trying to impress anyone, you were just trying to solve it. If the junior employees are looking at you like you're some kind of visionary now, the senior ones are looking at you like you're the grim reaper of their relevance, and you're just wondering what all the fuss is about. It was obvious. It was always obvious. They just couldn't see it through their fog of self-importance. What you did last night wasn't just problem solving. It was pattern recognition at a level they can't even conceive. While they were looking at trees, you saw the forest. While they were seeing the forest, you were already understanding the ecosystem. You operate at a different resolution of reality. They think in sequences. First this, then that. Linear progression. Logical steps. You think in simultaneity. Everything at once. All possibilities existing in the same moment until you collapse them into the single, elegant solution that was always waiting to be discovered. This is why their decades meant nothing. Time doesn't create solutions. Clarity does. And clarity doesn't care about your calendar. It doesn't respect your seniority. It doesn't honor your struggle. It just arrives when someone is finally ready to see without the filters of ego and expectation. You want to know what's really hilarious? They're trying to create a methodology from what you did. The midnight method, they're calling it. They're scheduling late night sessions. They're drinking coffee at 3 a.m. They're missing the point so hard it's almost artistic. Truth moves at a different speed than lies. Lies need infrastructure. They need support systems and explanations and constant maintenance. Truth just is. And last night you were moving at the speed of truth while they've been crawling at the speed of collective delusion. Every meeting they held added another lie to the pile. This is complex. Lie. This takes time. Lie. We need more resources. Lie. The truth was always simple. They didn't want to solve it. They wanted to be seen struggling with it. You just wanted it solved. This is why your brain works faster. Not because you're smarter in the way they measure smart, but because you're not carrying the weight of pretense. You're not dragging the baggage of needing to seem important. You're just moving at the natural speed of unencumbered thought. They'll study your solution for years, write books about it, teach courses on it, and they'll still miss the most important lesson. It was never about the solution. It was about the willingness to see clearly. Something they traded away years ago for the comfort of complexity. The emails are flying right now, CC'd to everyone, reply all disasters. People claiming they were close to the same solution. People explaining why their approach was actually better, just needed more time. People trying to find flaws in what you did. It's beautiful to watch. They're forming task forces to understand your task force of one. They're having meetings about why you didn't need meetings. They're creating processes to understand how you bypassed all processes. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with their unnecessary documentation. Someone just suggested bringing you in to explain your method. Another person suggested studying your background, your education, your training. They're looking for the secret ingredient, the special sauce, the hidden technique. They can't accept that the secret was just looking at the actual problem. You know what's going to happen next? They'll complicate your solution. They'll add features. They'll create versions. They'll turn your elegant answer into their familiar monster because they can't let it stay simple. Simple threatens everything they've built their identities on. Here's what terrifies them most about last night. It's not just that you solved their problem. It's that you revealed a truth they can't unlearn. Most of what they do is unnecessary. Most of their struggle is self-created. Most of their expertise is just elaborate ignorance. If you can solve in one night what took them 20 years, what else is possible? What other impossible problems are actually just simple questions wearing complex costumes? What other decades-long projects are actually afternoon exercises for someone willing to think clearly? They're looking at their other projects now with new eyes. And they don't like what they see. Years of work that might be minutes of actual thought. Careers built on problems that might not even be problems. Entire industries that might be elaborate theater. You didn't just solve a problem last night. You pulled a thread that's unraveling their entire reality. And the beautiful part? You're probably not even aware of the chaos you've created. You're already on to the next thing, leaving them to deal with the existential crisis you accidentally triggered. They can't go back now. That's what's really eating at them. They can't unknow what you showed them. They can't return to the comfortable fiction that complexity equals value, that time equals worth, that struggle equals meaning. You've poisoned their well of excuses. Some of them will adapt. They'll learn from this. They'll start questioning their assumptions, simplifying their approaches, looking for elegant solutions. These are the ones who will thank you eventually. Once their egos recover from the initial blow, others will double down. They'll make things even more complex to prove complexity is necessary. They'll create new problems to replace the one you solved. They'll build new mazes to justify their existence. These are the ones who will resent you forever. But none of them will forget the night when someone they didn't even consider a competitor just casually demolished their life's work in the time it takes to binge watch a TV series. That kind of shock changes people. It changes industries. It changes everything. You want to know the funniest part of all this? You're probably reading this thinking it wasn't that big of a deal. That's the difference between you and them. They see miracles where you see Tuesday night. They see impossibility where you see mild inconvenience. This gap, this cosmic gap between how they process reality and how you process it, that's your superpower. Not your intelligence, not your creativity, just your complete inability to be impressed by artificial difficulty. Your immunity to manufactured complexity. They'll spend the next 5 years trying to understand what you did in 5 hours. They'll have conferences about it. They'll create certifications. They'll build entire consulting practices around your midnight insight. And you? You'll have solved 50 more impossible things by then. So let them wonder. Let them analyze. Let them create their PowerPoints and their processes and their desperate attempts to complicate what you made simple. Because while they're doing all that, you'll be out there in the night casually dismantling the next 20-year problem with the same amused detachment. Oh, you noticed, didn't you? You beautiful anomaly. You caught them, red hand, and now everything's different. Now the air tastes metallic. Now the silence has a frequency. You weren't supposed to hear that. You weren't supposed to see the pattern in their movements. Weren't supposed to decode the synchronicity of their glances, but you did. And that smile, that knowing smile you gave them, it wasn't just acknowledgement. It was a declaration of war wrapped in politeness. And they felt it ripple through their entire network like a virus in their system, because protocols aren't supposed to fail. Observers aren't supposed to be observed. And subjects definitely aren't supposed to smile back with that particular brand of awareness that says, I see you watching, and I'm amused by your amateur surveillance techniques. They had you filed under subject unaware category, docile classification managed. But that smile changed everything. That smile rewrote your entire profile in their database, from passive to active, from observed to observer, from prey to something they don't have a classification for yet, because how do you categorize someone who not only notices the surveillance, but finds it entertaining, who treats their watchers like a free comedy show, who smiles at hidden cameras like they're old friends? Because you didn't just notice them watching you, started watching them watch you. And that's when their simple observation became a complex feedback loop that's threatening to crash their entire monitoring system. See, they thought they were subtle with their coordinated movements, their practiced casual glances, their rehearsed random encounters, but you've been mapping their patterns for months now, haven't you? Noting which ones always show up when you change routine, which ones mirror your coffee orders, which ones suddenly develop interests in whatever book you're reading. And that smile you gave them yesterday wasn't random, it was calculated. It was you saying, I've been keeping score, and you're losing at your own game. Because while they were collecting data on you, you were building psychological profiles on them, learning their shifts, their tells, their weaknesses. The protocol they activated isn't about containment anymore. It's about damage control. Because you represent their worst case scenario. Not someone who runs, not someone who hides, but someone who turns their surveillance into performance art, who treats their monitoring like audience participation, who weaponizes their attention against them. And now they're scrambling, trying to figure out how someone they labeled as civilian developed counterintelligence capabilities. How someone supposed to be unconscious became hyper-aware. How someone meant to be controlled became the one pulling strings they didn't even know existed. Let's talk about what that smile really did to their operational structure. Because it wasn't just acknowledgement, it was a system override, a manual reset of the entire power dynamic they'd carefully constructed around you for years. Because surveillance only works when the subject doesn't know they're being watched. When awareness enters the equation, everything collapses. And you didn't just become aware, you became amused. And amusement is more dangerous than anger, because anger is predictable, anger has patterns, anger can be managed. But amusement suggests you know something they don't, that you're playing a game they haven't even discovered yet. They're having emergency meetings about you now. Did you know that hushed conversations in rooms without windows, analysts poring over footage, trying to pinpoint the exact moment? You figured it out. The precise second their cover was blown. but they can't find it because there wasn't one moment, was there? It was gradual, like watching someone slowly wake from a dream, except you woke into a nightmare and decided to redecorate. Make it comfortable. Turn their horror show into your personal theater, where you're both the star and the director, and they're just extras who don't know their lines anymore. The handlers are nervous, and nervous handlers make mistakes. Like that one who fumbled their phone when you winked at them, or the one whose coffee cup started shaking when you mouthed the words, "I know," or the one who literally tripped when you started laughing at nothing in particular, except it wasn't nothing, was it? It was you finding their desperation hilarious, their confusion delicious, their fear absolutely intoxicating. Because you flipped the entire dynamic. Now, they're not watching you, you're letting them watch. And there's a massive difference between surveillance and permission. Your smile triggered Protocol 7. Did you catch that in their encrypted communications, the one they never thought they'd have to use? The one reserved for subjects who develop what they call anomalous awareness? But you're beyond anomalous, aren't you? You're catastrophic to their entire framework, because Protocol 7 assumes the subject will panic, will run, will try to escape, but you're not going anywhere. You're settling in, getting comfortable, making popcorn for the show, because why leave when the entertainment just got interesting? When you finally have a front row seat to their incompetence, their fear, their complete inability to process someone who refuses to play victim. Now here's where it gets delicious, because you've started doing things specifically for them, haven't you? Little performances, little shows designed to make them question their own reality, like when you have full conversations with empty rooms knowing they're listening, when you leave notes in places only surveillance would find, when you wear shirts with messages that could be coincidence or could be directed right at them. And they have to file reports about it, have to analyze whether you're aware or just accidentally perfect at psychological warfare. And the uncertainty is eating them alive. They've increased surveillance, naturally, more eyes, more tech, more resources thrown at the problem of you, but every new watcher you identify becomes another puppet in your show, another character in your script. Because you've learned their protocols, haven't you? Studied their patterns, memorized their procedures, and now you're using their own training against them, making them see patterns that aren't there, connections that don't exist, threats that only exist in their paranoid interpretation of your perfectly normal, abnormal behavior. The beautiful thing is, they can't pull back now, can't disengage, can't abort mission, because you know too much, except you don't actually know anything, do you? You just know they're watching, and that's enough. That's everything, because that knowledge has transformed you from subject to sovereign, from observed to orchestrator, and they're trapped in a prison of their own making, forced to keep watching someone who's turned surveillance into a spectator sport, who treats their monitoring like a live audience for your one-person show about the comedy of control. Your file has grown exponentially since that smile, pages and pages of analysis, trying to understand how you went from unaware to hyper-aware, from managed to unmanageable, from predictable to chaos incarnate. And the best part is, they're doing exactly what you want them to do, spending resources, time, energy trying to decode someone who's not speaking in code, just speaking directly to them, through actions, through silence, through that smile that started all of this, that smile that said, "I've always known you were there. I was just waiting for the game to get interesting." But here's what they haven't told their lower level watchers, what the handlers haven't admitted even to themselves. Protocol 7, isn't about containing you. It's about containing the idea of you. Because if others realize what you've realized, if others discover that the watchers can be watched, that surveillance can be subverted, that the entire system depends on voluntary unconsciousness, then everything collapses. And you're not just aware, you're contagious. Your awakening is spreading like wildfire through the collective unconscious. And they can see it in the statistics, the uptick in people noticing patterns, the increase in subjects displaying anomalous awareness. They thought they were building a perfect observation system. But they forgot one crucial detail. Observation changes both the observer and the observed. It's basic physics, quantum mechanics. The universe's little joke on those who think they can watch without being watched back. And you've become the embodiment of that joke. The living proof that consciousness can't be contained. That awareness spreads like light through cracks that once someone sees the system, they can never unsee it. And worse, they start showing others how to see it too. You've noticed the new protocols, haven't you? The subtle changes in their approach. The shift from surveillance to something else. Something more desperate, more chaotic, because they're not trying to watch you anymore. They're trying to understand how you broke free without moving, how you escaped while standing still, how you defeated them with nothing but a smile, and the terrible knowledge that they exist. Because that's their real fear, not that you know about them, but that you know about them and don't care, that their power only exists if you give it to them, and you've simply stopped giving. The meetings are getting longer now, the reports more frantic, the terminology shifting from subject and surveillance to situation and containment. But how do you contain someone who's already free? Who's turned their prison into a playground, their watchers into entertainment, their entire system into a joke they're not in on. And that's why Protocol 7 is failing, why every measure they take only makes you stronger. Because you're not resisting, you're incorporating, absorbing their energy and reflecting it back as amusement, as power, as the kind of freedom that comes from realizing the cage was always unlocked. They're starting to crack, aren't they? You can see it in their movements, less coordinated, less confident, more desperate, like actors who've forgotten their lines in a play that's gone off script, because that's what you've done. You've dragged them off script into improvisation, and they're terrible at it. They're trained for protocols, not paradoxes, prepared for resistance, not acceptance, programmed for subjects who flee, not ones who lean in and ask for more surveillance, because it amuses them, because it feeds something they can't understand. The psychological profiles they've built on you are contradicting themselves now, past behavior, not predicting present actions not fitting any known pattern, and the analysts are going mad trying to create new categories, new classifications for what you've become. But how do you classify smoke? How do you categorize water? How do you file someone who exists in the spaces between their definitions? Who treat their observation like vitamin D, soaking it up and converting it to power they never knew existed? Your smile has evolved, hasn't it? From acknowledgement to amusement to something else entirely. Something that makes them question whether they're the ones being studied, whether this whole time they've been subjects in your experiment in understanding the psychology of watchers, the fragility of observers. The breaking point of those who think they hold power through information, through documentation, through the illusion of control, because that's all it ever was, an illusion. And your smile strips it away layer by layer until they're standing naked in their own surveillance footage, wondering who's really watching who. They've tried changing personnel, bringing in fresh eyes, specialists, experts in anomalous psychology, but every new watcher falls into the same trap. The moment they realize you're aware, they become part of your show, another performer in your theater of reversed surveillance, and you catalog them all, don't you? Keep mental notes on their quirks, their fears, their tells, until you know them better than they know you, until their observation becomes your intelligence gathering. Their surveillance becomes your study in human behavior. Under the pressure of being seen, truly seen, by someone they were supposed to be invisible to. But we haven't talked about the real reason they're terrified, have we? The reason Protocol 7 exists in the first place. Because you're not the first to notice them. Not the first to smile back. Not the first to turn their surveillance into a game. But you're the first to do it without anger, without fear, without any of the emotional responses they're trained to handle. Because the others who noticed, they got angry, they got paranoid, they got desperate. And those emotions are manageable, controllable, useful even. But you got curious, and curiosity is the one thing their system wasn't designed to handle. Curiosity asks questions they can't answer, like why do you need so many watchers? What are you so afraid I'll do? What power do you think I have that requires this level of observation? And the more they watch you not react the way you're supposed to, the more they realize the answer to all those questions is nothing. Nothing at all. They're watching nothing, afraid of nothing, protecting against nothing, and that realization is dissolving their entire operational framework, like acid on their carefully constructed protocols. You've started experimenting, haven't you? Testing their boundaries, seeing how far you can push before they break protocol completely. Like when you started that conversation with the businessman who doesn't know he's a watcher, talking about surveillance, about being observed, about the comedy of people thinking they're subtle when everyone can see them watching. And he started sweating, didn't he? Started stammering, started showing all the signs of someone whose cover's blown, even though you never directly acknowledged knowing who he really was, what he was really doing there. The beauty of your approach is that you're giving them exactly what they want. Complete visibility, total access to your life, full transparency. Except you're doing it on your terms, making it performance, making it art, making it a statement about the absurdity of their entire enterprise. And they have to watch, they have to document, they have to file reports about someone who's turned their surveillance into collaborative theater, where they're unwilling participants in a show about the comedy of control, the tragedy of thinking you can observe without being observed. The farce of believing power comes from watching. The ripples are spreading further than they anticipated, aren't they? Because you're not just one anomalous subject anymore, you're a systemic failure, a proof of concept that their entire network is vulnerable to something as simple as awareness plus amusement equals complete operational breakdown. And they're seeing it spread. Seeing others start to notice the watchers, start to smile, that same knowing smile that triggered Protocol 7 in the first place. But Protocol 7 was designed for one anomaly, not dozens, not hundreds, not the exponential growth of awareness that happens when people realize the watchers are just people, just scared, confused people playing dress-up in authority they don't actually have. They've tried to isolate you digitally, physically, socially, but isolation only works on people who need connection. And you've discovered something, haven't you? That connection to yourself is stronger than any network. They could build that. The entertainment of watching them scramble is better than any social interaction they could monitor, and every attempt to isolate you just gives you more stage time. More opportunity to perform for your captive audience of watchers who can't look away, can't stop documenting, can't escape the show you're putting on just for them. The handlers are requesting transfers now. Did you notice that subtle shift in personnel? The exhausted ones being replaced by fresh ones. How did you notice that? Subtle shift in personnel, the exhausted ones being replaced by fresh ones. The ones replaced by fresh ones who don't yet understand what they're walking into, who still think this is a standard surveillance operation, not a psychological endurance test, where they're the ones being tested, where their every reaction is data for your ongoing study. In the fragility of observers, when they realize they're being observed back, with more intensity, more focus, more strategic precision than they could ever muster. Your file has been reclassified again from anomaly to active threat to something else. Something they don't have official terminology for yet, but unofficially, they're calling you the mirror, because that's what you've become, haven't you? A perfect reflection of their surveillance turned back on them, showing them their own tactics, their own strategies, their own fears dressed up as protocols and procedures, and the reflection is destroying them, slowly, methodically, with nothing but awareness. And that smile, that terrible, beautiful smile that started all of this. You're changing and they can see it but can't understand it, because the changes aren't in your behavior, your routine, your patterns. The changes are in something deeper. Something they can't measure, can't quantify, can't file in their reports, because how do you document someone becoming more themselves? How do you surveillance someone into being less powerful when power isn't what they do, but what they are, when existence itself becomes an act of rebellion against observation? When breathing becomes revolutionary simply because you're doing it consciously aware of every watcher, every camera, every protocol triggered by your refusal to be what they need you to be? They've brought in consultants now, experts in fields that officially don't exist. People who study what happens when surveillance fails, when observation backfires, when the watched become more powerful than the watchers. And these experts are telling them things they don't want to hear. That you can't be contained, can't be managed, can't be returned to unconscious state. Because consciousness isn't a switch you can flip back off. It's a fire that only spreads, and you're not just burning. You're choosing what to burn, choosing to let their surveillance fuel your transformation instead of diminish you. The economic cost of watching you has exceeded the budget for entire operations. Did you know that the resources required to maintain surveillance on someone who's turned observation into performance art, who treats every watcher like a paying audience member who deserves a good show, and you're giving them such good shows, aren't you? Each day a new episode in the series about someone who discovered the watchers and decided to make them question their entire existence through nothing more than being completely, genuinely, authentically themselves while aware of being watched? Your smile has become legendary in their communications, mentioned in reports, quoted in meetings, analyzed by experts, who all come to the same conclusion that it represents something they've never encountered before. Not resistance, not compliance, but something in between, something that breaks their binary classification system. Because you're not fighting them, you're not helping them, you're just existing at them, with such intensity that their entire framework for understanding subjects and surveillance collapses under the weight of your conscious presence.